We are who we are, we love who we love. So, sexual orientation, the heart's GPS for emotional, romantic, and the hey, you're cute moments. It's more than just a plot twist at family gatherings, it's core to who we are. Sexual orientation is about the people we are attracted to, whether it's holding hands in the park or daydreaming about somebody who makes the old ticker go padam padam. Please do not confuse it with gender identity. That could be a separate podcast in its own entirety. However, I will briefly explain the differences later on today. Please think of sexual orientation as a colourful spectrum, like a bag of assorted jelly beans. Each flavour is unique, or even think of it as 50 shades of grey. Some of us are black, some of us are white, some of us are on the 50 different shades of grey in between. We're all unique, and there is no right and there is no wrong. There's no exam, there's no test involved to check you are correct. We are who we are. We love who we love. Next slide, please. So this is what I'm going to tantalise you with today. What is sexual orientation? A good old EDI&B recap. The main shades of grey. Orientation versus gender identity. One of my favourite cliches in life here. The only constant is change. The importance of acceptance. Challenges faced. Me. A brief history of time and did you know? And does sexual orientation impact on procurement activity? And at the end, at the close, I'll give the opportunities for any questions. Next slide, please. As I have done in my previous webinar, I always feel that it's beneficial to have a brief EDI&B review, just to reaffirm exactly what it covers and to highlight the importance of this wonderful group and why we're trying to cover various related subject matters. So equity, first of all, everybody gets a fair shot. Diversity, our glorious mix of humanity. Inclusion, everyone seen, everyone heard, and most importantly, everybody valued. Belonging, feeling like you're truly part of the gang. Next slide, please. So the types of sexual orientation, as I called it on the agenda, the shades of grey, and please, it's not some film. As I've already alluded to, sexual orientation comes in a wonderful array of flavour or a spectrum on the 50 Shades of Grey scale. One size never fits all, and let's be honest, it would be a boring world if we all wore a pair of beige Crocs. Next slide, please. Heterosexual. Fancy members of the opposite sex? You're classic, like good old vanilla ice cream. Most societies write you into their rom-com scripts, but please remember, every flavour deserves its own starring role. Homosexual. Prefer people of the same sex. Bienvenue to Club Rainbow. Gay men and lesbian women have written history, raised flags, and let's be honest, we probably have slightly more avant-garde dress sense. Acceptance has been growing over the past few years, but sadly, with some of the recent social media presence and an increase in far right, some views are far from liberal, and we're seeing a major plateau in acceptance at present. Bisexual. Attracted to both men and women, you're the ultimate multitasker. Bisexuality proves that life isn't a coin toss. The 50 Shades of Grey analogy for this particular sexual orientation is so apt, and bisexuality has become much more accepted over the past few years, as we've seen a vast array of celebrities be open and honest about their attraction to both sexes, such as David Bowie, Lady Gaga, Kit Connor, and Drew Barrymore, just to mention a few. Pansexual. No, this doesn't mean that you are falling for a 5-piece stainless steel non-stick set. You are attracted to people regardless of gender. Pansexuality says, I like hearts, not labels. Personality, connection, romantic attraction, and a good sense of humour are the real magnets. Asexual. Not feeling the spark for anybody? You might be asexual. Asexuality is about meaningful bonds, but minus the spicy bits. Next slide, please. So, how is sexual orientation different from gender identity? Whilst sexual orientation relates to who someone is attracted to, gender identity pertains to how individuals perceive themselves in terms of gender, whether they identify as male, female, both, neither, non-binary, or somewhere along that spectrum. They are interconnected but distinct different concepts. Next slide, please. So, can sexual orientation change over time? As I've already alluded to, one of my favourite cheesy cliches in life is the only constant is change. Tastes in fashion change. Tastes in food that we like change. Tastes in music change. So let's be open and honest and open-minded here. Potentially, tastes in sexual preference may change. Some people believe their sexual orientation may be fluid, changing and adapting across different periods of their lives due to evolving feelings or experiences. It's essential to recognise that each person's journey is unique and there's definitely no one-size-fits-all blueprint or user guide for understanding sexual attraction. The recent Channel 4 drama, Tip Top, was actually brave enough to depict a storyline in which a man who had previously identified himself as gay had decided that he was no longer gay and he was currently in a relationship with a woman and identifying himself as straight. We experiment with hairstyles and colours, and trust me, there's some very incriminating photos of me with black hair and green hair from my late teens. With the fashions that we adopt, we don't feel ashamed to dye our hair a silly colour. Why should we feel ashamed to experiment with our sexuality? Next slide, please. Celebrating sexual orientation keeps society vibrant and, let's be honest, a wee bit less boring. Acceptance means fewer awkward silences, more pride parades, and an endless supply of celebratory drinks and party streamers. Supportive environments from home to ballrooms help everybody bloom. Legal rights, representation, and open, honest chats are key. So let's raise a toast, preferably with a decent glass of champagne or wine or whatever you desire, to living authentically and lovingly without any barriers. Next slide, please. Despite a tremendous amount of acceptance and progress, some folks still face roadblocks. Think outdated opinions, weird looks, and relatives who ask the awkward question, when are you getting married? Discrimination just isn't uncool, it's exhausting. Advocacy and education they are our superhero capes. Fighting for equality and smashing stereotypes. Listen to those with lived experiences and remember, allyship is about supporting and not stealing the spotlight. Be Danny Minogue, not Kylie Minogue. Next slide, please. Right, please don't worry. This isn't the section where I go egotistical. This is the section where I actually talk about and review some of my own personal lived experiences. When I was younger, I was told on numerous occasions not to be a puff, not to be a ponce, and if I did choose to be a puff, I'd never have any friends, that I'd be lonely and miserable for the rest of my life. I was demanded to man up on numerous occasions. As you can see from this wonderful array of photos in front of you, I hardly look lonely and I don't look very miserable. Sorry to subject you to photos of myself and my husband over the past 26 years, but I just wanted to convey just how both happy we are and how comfortable that we are in our own skins. Next slide, please. What I would like people to do now is reflect as I recount some of my own personal experiences and how they would feel if these issues happened to them, a member of their family, or a close friend. So let's have a quick bit of audience participation. Some of the statements for you, they're here, they're not comfortable to read, some of these. I'm just wanting to make sure that I've not bored you all senseless and that you're still awake. Out of the statements below, which of these do you think didn't happen to me? They're all numbered and I'll give you a couple of minutes to read the statements and to give them some thought. And if people feel brave enough, please enter your responses into chat, and if needed, we can come back to these at the end of the presentation. I'll give you a couple of minutes. Unfortunately, Bruce, I can't see chat at this moment in time, so I'm not sure if the votes are coming in from the Swedish jury.
We can come back to the chat a little bit later, Paul, if you want to carry on, and people can sort of reflect on that.
Okay. I'll give everybody a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Yes. Thank you for participating. 13 might be an unlucky number, but these 13 statements are all unfortunately very true. These are all things that have happened to me, and please believe me when I tell you that there's a lot more things that have happened over the years. Some are even raw about to talk about even to this day, and I won't put those on there. What is really disheartening about some of the 13 statements is that unfortunately some have happened to me within the last few years of my life. On a recent podcast for Pride, I recalled the abuse and threats of my life that I had received, and that was only last year, and that was locally here in Wales. I'm not going to go over each and every statement, but I will give you some information with regards to what has happened to me historically. I am an openly proud gay man. I joked on a recent webinar that I was getting rather bored stuck in Narnia with a lion and a witch. So I came out back in early 1990. I couldn't live a lie anymore. I'd tried to put on a facade and fit in socially, and it was causing me copious amounts of stress. So I came out in early 1990, and as a result of that, I lost a great amount of close friends who basically just didn't want anything to do with me anymore, as I was now gay, and I didn't longer fit in with their ideas, and I was no longer accepted, didn't fit in. It really hurt me at the time. I moved over to Leeds city centre from a small mining town in Yorkshire, and basically started my life all over again. Leaving Narnia at the time must have been difficult for me at that time, but it was definitely the best thing that I ever did. And now I'm exceedingly comfortable in my own skin. It's just a pity that at times society and other individuals are still not comfortable with my skin and the skin of anyone who isn't heterosexual. The irony about all of my friends disowning me at the time is that one of my close friends at the time who opted to go with the majority basically disowned me, now has a gay son. I've recently-ish received a kind of apology, but a true friend and ally wouldn't have put me through that in the first instance, but hey-ho. The last line on there, bullied for being me, that covers a multitude of the harassment and cruelty that I've suffered over the years, even from family members. I'll make it public knowledge, I don't have anything to do with my parents. My choice, my decision. As I've already alluded to, I do love cliches. You can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. It's such a true cliche in life. I'm exceedingly lucky that I have a very supportive sister who is absolutely amazing. Not once has she judged. She's always been supportive. Maybe she's not been supportive of some of my dodgy clothing choices, but she's always been there for me. One incident that does involve family, I'll recall. So my husband and I once attended the wedding of my cousin, who I'm exceedingly close to. The vicar went out of his way to make the pair of us feel exceedingly uncomfortable by preaching about unnatural relationships during the ceremony. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but there's a time and a place. There was clearly no need for that comment at such an important event. My poor cousin had no idea that that speech was going to be made. Luckily, it didn't spoil her big day. But that seed had been planted by other family members who should have known much better. I'm not going to harp on about family, as each family dynamic and culture is unique and different. The only thing that I would implore everybody to do is please refrain from negative comments if you suspect your child to be on the shades of grey spectrum. Just please try support them. Next slide, please. So I wanted to give you a few snapshots of some interesting facts from sexual orientation history. So first of all, good old Emperor Adrian, I think most of us have heard of him, ruled the Roman Empire some years ago. So Adrian wasn't only a peacemaker, he was the first leader of Rome, and he made it very clear that he was homosexual. So it's in the history books. Many predecessors had taken male lovers. He was, as it was possible in Rome society, it was accepted back in those days. Hadrian was unique. He made it very official, and he didn't try to hide his sexual orientation, as other emperors had done before him. Next slide, please. So this is one that some of us may be aware of. This storyline was depicted in the 2018 film The Favourite, starring Olivia Colman, and it's in relation to Queen Anne of Great Britain. And she had a long-lasting, intimate friendship with Sarah Churchill, the Duchess of Marlborough. And if people have seen the film, obviously things didn't go very well, and basically the Queen was blackmailed due to letters that had been retained. And she accused the Queen of keeping basically lesbian favourites. Next slide, please. So this is in relation to the Wolfenden report, and I think it just illustrates how long it takes to get things finalised. So the Wolfenden report with relation to sexual offences was introduced by the Labour government back in 1967. The Act finally decriminalised homosexual acts between two men of the age of 21 in England and Wales. This didn't extend to Scotland and Northern Ireland or the Channel Islands or the Isle of Man, where homosexual behaviour remained illegal. And believe it or not, those restrictions were only overturned in the European Court of Human Rights in the year 2000. Just as an aside, please note that the equal age of consent wasn't reduced to match heterosexual rights until January 2001. Next slide, please. Now, this really tickles me. This is fact. So in Sweden, homosexuality was classed as an illness until 1979. And I think it's wonderful how the Swedes protested. It was actually rallied by a political group, but basically they arranged for vast amounts of men to ring into work sick, claiming that they were sick with homosexuality and that they couldn't come into work. Homosexuality was declassified soon afterwards. That I really like that one. Next slide, please. So, talking about things taking a long time, Labour government stopped banning homosexuals from the armed forces after the European Court of Human Rights ruled it unlawful, and the law itself wasn't actually repealed until the Armed Forces Act in 2016. But the process for this actually started in 1994, quite a long time before then. Next slide, please. The word homosexual never appeared in any Bible until 1946, and none of the 6 verses, often weaponized against the LGBTQ and others community, refer to sexual orientation or gender identity as we understand them today. Next slide, please. Okay, if people want to speak up, please do so. Does anybody know who this sculpture is, please? Anybody?
I want to say Quentin Crisp, but I could be horribly wrong.
You are horribly wrong, but I can understand where you came out with that one. So this is Alan Turing, who was born in 1912 and sadly took his own life at the age of 41. Alan, as everybody is aware, was key in the development of theoretical computer science and provided the concepts of the algorithm and computation with the Turing machine, which assisted the UK tremendously during the Second World War. After the Second World War, he worked at the National Physical Laboratory in Manchester, where he designed the automatic computing engine, which is one of the first designs for a stored computer program. In 1952, he was sadly prosecuted for homosexual acts and accepted chemical castration hormone treatment as an alternative to prison. He sadly committed suicide on the 7th of June 1954. In 2009, Gordon Brown made an official public apology for the appalling way in which Turing had been treated. Queen Elizabeth II granted a pardon in 2013, and nowadays the term the Alan Turing Law is used to informally refer to the 2017 law that is used to retrospectively pardon cautioned or convicted people under the historical legislation that outlawed homosexual acts. Next slide, please. So after a little sexual orientation history whisked through time in the good old TARDIS, on to modern day protections that we have within the UK. So the Equality Act 2010 is the UK law that consolidates anti-discriminatory legislation, protecting individuals from unfair treatment based on the 9 protected characteristics. As you can clearly see, sexual orientation is there as large as life, reassuring to know whatever flavour you prefer, there's a law there to protect you. Next slide, please. This slide is purely here for information, and it's the official definitions as per the Equality Act. As we're all procurement professionals within the NHS, we love a little bit of the terms and conditions. Next slide, please. So within PPN 002, the social value model, which became effective in 2025, it mandates the inclusion of social value in government contracts, focusing on measurable outcomes aligned with the government missions. Next slide, please. Here's a little bit of a recap of the 5 national missions within PPO2 that we must be considering throughout the tender process. And highlighted here are the ones where sexual orientation could be applicable. We should really be considering including some social value objectives that reference EDI&B, subject to the actual tender to hand. Potentially state that the evaluation will consider how suppliers demonstrate support for protected characteristics, including potential sexual orientation. Next slide, please. This slide is an example of a technical question which was used within the North of England CPC against a recent tender process, looking at what the bidder's approach would be for improving access to services with a focus on underserved or vulnerable groups. Another example here could be requesting bidders to describe how their sexual orientation, how their organisation reduces equality and prevents discrimination based on sexual orientation. Request that bidders provide actual evidence of policies or initiatives that promotes fairness and inclusivity for all protected characteristics, again, including sexual orientation. Some potential examples of questions and evaluation criteria could be, an example question could be worded along the lines of, please describe how your organisation guarantees equality, provides evidence and prevents discrimination based on sexual orientation within the areas of recruitment, retention and progression. Provide evidence of policies or initiatives and reports that promote inclusivity for all protected characteristics. And for the evaluation criteria, you could have something along the lines of, bidders will provide existence of equality and protected characteristic policies, evidence of delivery and recording of training and awareness programs, evidence of a reduction in the number of concerns raised in all matters relating to discrimination based on sexual orientation. And again, ask for a description of the process used for monitoring and reporting mechanisms adopted for compliance. Next slide, please. So the here and now, I'm not going to swerve into the oncoming traffic of politics as this webinar is purely in relation to sexual orientation. However, we are seeing a general plateau and at times a decline in acceptance or tolerance of sexual orientation on anything that's other than vanilla. On a personal note, I found it exceedingly encouraging recently with the situation that Durham Pride experienced. Not sure if people are aware, but Durham Council is now reform run, and the council withdrew the £2,500 budget that they had to support the local Pride event. The trade unions rallied round, and they actually really embarrassed and they showed the council up for what they had done. The trade unions actually raised £10,000, so 4 times the amount that the council originally had allotted to support the local Pride event. So, you know, it just proves that, you know, spite and hatred never wins. Found that very encouraging. Next slide, please. Understanding sexual orientation makes communities kinder and probably a lot more fun. The more we know, the more we grow. Celebrating diversity brings colour to the world and bonds us together. So learn, laugh, and love boldly. Life's too short for dull relationships and a world without Kylie or Madonna. Next slide, please. So, conclusion. Scientific evidence proves that homosexuality isn't unique to the human race. There's been various studies conducted and common homosexual behaviours and activities have been observed in over 1,500 species. The activity is fluid, and there's various publications and studies, such as the book The Biological Exuberance by Bruce Bajmeal, which can evidence this fact. The animals might choose to go back to mate with an animal of the opposite sex, even after demonstrating homosexual behaviours previously. As I've already alluded to on the previous slide, even in some human beings, you know, some sexuality is fluid and it may change over time. Unfortunately, though, this trait is only present in one species, and homophobia is only present in mankind. I'd like to end on a rather serious note and a fairly upsetting statistic. Last year within England, 19,000 hate crimes against the queer community were reported to police, and we are seeing an upward increase on these figures year on year. Next slide, please. Despite what my husband might tell everybody, I do not like the sound of my own voice, but if somebody can take away one small nugget of something that was useful from what I shared today, I feel that I will have done something worthwhile. Apologies if what I have said at times has been slightly uncomfortable to listen to, but it's fact. It's happened to me and it will still happen to me. I pray for the day that it becomes less and less, but thank you for your time. It is much appreciated. And if anybody has any questions or wish to make any comments, the floor is open. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Paul. I could sit and listen to you for another hour. I've got a meeting.
You smooth to
honestly, no, that was so heartwarming, and you know, thank you for sharing a little bit a lot of yourself, a lot of your vulnerability, a lot of your you know, your past pain and trauma. That takes a lot of courage for you to make yourself feel a little bit uncomfortable. And even if we feel a little bit uncomfortable, this is a reality of real life experiences. So a huge heartfelt thanks. Has anybody got any questions, any comments that they'd like? There's lots of comments in the chat. Keith. Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Keith.
There we go. Hopefully, there you go. Paul, great presentation and insightful and provocative and challenging as well, because some of those experiences I think you've seen when your time at CPC while I've been in charge as well, and that's hard to hear, isn't it? Because they're not acceptable and they've been difficult. My question, you mentioned the program Tiptoe, which someone else on this call encouraged me to watch, and I found it really fascinating. I thought it was quite an interesting comment about how we seem to be becoming less, or one of the themes of it, we seem to be becoming less inclusive and slightly more polarized, if that's the right word, or you know, maybe more homophobia is being seen.
Yeah.
And you talked about that in your statistics at the end. Is that, I don't know, what's your observations on that? And do you see that more? Do you see more polarity?
You do see it more, and this isn't a generalization, but there's certain social media forums such as like Facebook, for example, where it's just become a toxic cesspit of negativity. I'm all for freedom of speech, but unfortunately, some people push the boundaries and they can be very, very hurtful, very, very nasty. I know that our host organisation, LYPFT, they host a sexual orientation services, and they've had some very negative, nasty trolling on X, for example. So I think it's very easy for people to be faceless keyboard bullies, and it's almost as if some of these people have progressed from the playground to a keyboard to spout their venom and just to upset others when there's no need. I mean, I've personally seen an increase in a lack of tolerance over the past few years, most definitely. And there's definitely, obviously, without talking politics, you look at how reformed is in the recent council elections, and I think that speaks in volumes. There's a line in Tiptoe that I really, really like, and it's actually where the drama got its name from, and it's where the drag queen is sat in the bar talking to the actor Alan Cummins, and he said, when I used to enter a room, I used to go ta-da, and he says, and now I just tiptoe, which is where the actual title for the drama actually came from. And again, sometimes you do feel as if you're having to tiptoe around, dare I say. I mean, I was down in London only a couple of years ago, and I was physically assaulted and spat at in one of the tube stations because I was holding Chris's hand. I mean, credit where credit's due. London Underground, they took that person away. But I know from social media, I'm not the only person that experiences this kind of behaviour, and yeah, it's a sad state of the country at this moment in time. But
the scene that struck it for me was when the two of them were sat having a chat. There was the chap and the older guy that he knew, and they were having a chat after a night out on Canal Street. The guy opposite him, not the Alan Cummins character, I can't remember who it is, but he starts talking about some of the change he's seeing in the world. And it's interesting, you talk about technology and how it creates an environment. I think we've got some real challenges with technology and how that's used, and how it creates a kind of unaccountable, I'm not saying we get accountability right, by the way, but even in a personal sense, but I think technology creates some levels of unaccountability that's quite easy to whip that kind of stuff up, and it's quite difficult, isn't it? But yeah, if you haven't watched Tiptoe, by the way, I'd encourage people to watch it. It's really interesting insight into some of the topics I guess you were talking about, Paul.
Some people might think it's a bit far-fetched, but I can assure you that from where I sit in life, it's very, very factual, and it is it's true to life. Hard to swallow.
Yeah, it is, but it's a learning point as well, isn't it? So, which is what, yeah. So thank you very much. Really good, really good presentation as always. Yeah,
thank you, Keith. Yeah, I think one of the key messages here is education is key. Please do not get too much from this, but don't be a child's first bully. That's all I'm going to say. Has anybody else got any questions?
Simon, I noticed you.
Oh, sorry, Simon.
With that, he put his hands up. Wow, how intuitive was I? Thank you.
Paul, I don't have a question, mate. I'm a big advocate of you now. Since that webinar, I was just angry and inflated, and actually so proud of you with all of that and what you shared today. So just keep fighting the fight, mate. It's just brilliant, and hopefully sharing the message will just create more allies like us to support the wider piece and just drown out that negativity. So just thank you, mate. I'm just in awe of you. I really am, buddy.
Thank you very much for the kind words, Simon. That means one hell of a lot. I've already alluded to the fact that I do love, cheesy cliches, but education is key, and the only constant is change. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Let's park it there. But thank you, everybody.
Bruce.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was
sorry,
just
Bruce.
going to, yes, I was just going to direct people, if they haven't listened to it, to the Pride podcast that we did, the Pride episode of Supply Cast did with Paul. He goes into some additional stories and anecdotes and about various bits and pieces that I think would act as quite a nice compliment to anyone that's been on this webinar, if you'd like to listen to it afterwards. And then I did have a question, just to bring it back to the procurement community in a way. We asked it on the podcast, but I thought I'd ask it here. I asked you, Paul, whether in your time in NHS procurement, whether you feel you've seen a massive change in how you're represented within procurement, your community is represented, but also how you've personally found it during your time in the community. Whether you think it is better now, whether you think there's still a lot more work to be done, or otherwise.
I think there's always scope for improvement in every area of life. We talk about, things always evolve and change. Yeah, granted, I've been in the NHS now over 20 years in this role. You only get 15 years for life. But I have seen progress, but, nothing's ever perfect. And I think it's, education is key. And I would like to think that, we learn by mistakes, and that, the only thing that we can change is the future. We can't change the past, but I think we need to make sure that, we ensure that we do change the future to prevent further recurrences of incidents that have already happened. Because some of the things that I've experienced, I wouldn't wish them on my worst enemy, to be quite honest. There's just no need.
Thank you, Paul. Has anybody else got any questions or comments that they would like to make?
What I would say is, if anybody doesn't feel comfortable to raise comments here, please reach out and contact me direct. My door is always open.
Thank you, Paul. I'm just hoping that through the webinar, we've been able to really demonstrate within the HCA. First of all, thank you to the HCA for really providing this platform for individual members to come and to be themselves, to share, for you to come and listen, with the aim really of learning. I've learned such a lot really through these slides myself, but also to be that advocate for others, personally, but also through the work that we do. If you look at our social value, the EDI&B questionnaires that we send out, I hope this makes us reflect in our practice and be supportive, not just on the EDI&B, I can see Tracy there, but also for the Women's Network as well. I want to give a shout out to the Women's Network. Conferences at the end of September. Tracy didn't pay me to say that, but I just want to say conferences, so register, please. And yes, thank you all for attending. If there's no other questions or any other comments, I think we will end a few minutes early, unless anybody else has anything else to say.
I think it'll be interesting at the Women's Network. Capsticks are going to deliver quite a moving and inclusive piece around EDI&B, so it'll be quite interesting. So watch this space.
Looking forward to that, Tracy. Absolutely.
Mary's in planning now, so it's looking really good.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bruce, thank you for being
Paul.
Our knight in shining armour. And
thank you for your time, everybody.
Yes.
Great delivery,
Cheers.
Paul. Thank you.
Take care, everybody. All the best.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Paul.
Bye-bye.